Rachel, we are recording. Great to see you this morning.
Great to see you too, Daniel.
And it is early, and I have to apologize, but Lauren's still asleep, so she can't come in and ask you the first question.
Oh, well, maybe she can come and ask me the last question.
She's
In
under
her
strict.
pajamas.
Well, Claire has instructions that if Lauren does show up, just to like throw her in the office so she can come and
Okay.
ask you a question.
I'd love to see her.
Yeah, of course, of course. And yeah, most people are probably thinking, what? How? It's like, well, they wouldn't know. It's a Monday morning and it's 8:40 a.m. And what's she doing still being asleep? Like, she should be up, facing the world, trapped in a classroom. But yeah, a
I'm
discussion for
sure
another
she
day.
was doing fascinating things at the weekend, which were far more valuable to her than what you can learn in a school classroom.
Absolutely.
I think
So,
we're on the same wavelength with that one.
yes, we certainly are.
Although it would interest me, because now some of yours have swapped to go into more traditional educational pathways. How's it going?
Yes, it's going well. We have Caitlyn now. As you know, she's 19 at university. She took a year out. She went traveling with some friends of hers. She hit Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and she spent about 6 weeks, I think, teaching English to Thai kids in the hills above. Where was her nearest town? Although it wasn't that near at all, like Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai kind of way in Thailand. So she had an incredible time doing that, and is now at university studying. Oh God, she yeah,
But a little bird told me. A
international
li-
relations.
okay, okay. Listen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. For me, university. I mean, I've got four children, the same as you, and for me, university is an opportunity for them to grow as human beings, get
Mm,
out from home, and become their own person. So, not
mhm.
what does mummy and daddy want from me, but what do I want from me? So, hey, what you're studying. I mean, my youngest is also studying something similar in Rotterdam, international economics, business economics, which makes me cringe sometimes. But then, hey, he's playing volleyball in the team. He manages the women's team. This is where you're really learning for life, and
Yeah.
they'll get there in the end. And the little bird told me at the weekend we had our European Bitcoin Energy Association meeting in Munich, and the UK Bitcoin policy was there as well. I think that Caitlin might be starting to do a little bit of work for them too, huh?
She is. Yeah. Her and
Excellent.
Susie asked her if she would help host the Bitcoin policy podcast, which
Perfect.
is going to be amazing to see. So fingers crossed that all comes together. And funnily enough, the she she called me immediately when she got her first assignment. She's like, "You're not going to believe it." I'm like, okay. The title of her first essay was "How is money created in the UK banking system?"
Oh, she'll have a field day on that. Hope she gets an
So
A
that
for that.
one's finished. It's in, and she cited Saifedean, obviously, all over it, and a few other prominent Bitcoiners. Um, and let's hope, fingers crossed, that the professor sees some kind of value in the last two or three paragraphs where she rounds it all up, and the Bitcoin fixes this sub paragraph. So
Hey, Daniel, they're getting it on Wednesday next week. I've got the Technical University of Ingolstadt coming to us in Noises to learn about what is Bitcoin mining. The universities are opening up to it as well. So we're getting there. And this is where it's so important to have people like Caitlin at those universities because, and this is what we see in the world of business. I ask every Bitcoiner, please don't leave your fiat job because you're doing if you're in a trusted position and they know you as a valuable employee, if you don't missionary about it, but if you can drip, drip, drip where it's sensible, the message of Bitcoin, this is how we are taking Bitcoin away from the Bitcoin bubble into the world outside. So it's really useful having these people in academics in the world of business.
absolutely is. We need all the sleepers inside the fiat system
I mean,
stepping
this
up.
is this is how it works. I mean, we had last week. When I was looking at my diary last week, we had one meeting with one of the biggest grid providers in Germany, with Siemens Energy, which I can now mention their name, with and Siemens, another part of Siemens, and it all starts off with one chap who's a Bitcoiner who talks to another chap. And the good thing about what we do at Terra Hash, because there's no company Bitcoin. where do you go to when you have an idea? And so they tend to turn to me. And so I get this call from a Bitcoiner sitting somewhere in a big company. And I happen to have had a call a couple of months earlier from another one sitting in the same company, but they don't know each other. And so
Aha.
I can bring them together and say, oh, well, you need to talk to Bob. So Bob talks to Fred, and then synergies happen. And the next thing you know, you've got the Department of Innovation sitting around the conference table at Terra Hash discussing how can we incorporate Bitcoin mining in grid stabilization.
Hmm.
And this is how this thing is working. It's all about networking. It's all about knowing people. It's all about spreading the message with proper solutions, with solutions that you have to address the problems that people actually have. There's no point bleating on about money if nobody's realized that the money is broken. We know the money is broken, but 99% of the population doesn't know it's broken. And so you're just hitting against closed doors. But we all know in Europe we've got an energy problem because I see my bill at the end of every month, whether I'm an individual or whether I'm a company, and we know that it's becoming increasingly difficult to remain competitive. I have a problem with energy. So if somebody will come and knock on my door and say, I've got a solution to your energy problem, I'm all ears. And this is working. This is how we need to approach it.
That's draw. I mean, it's funny because, well, yeah, point when we dropped this, I'd have just an episode or two beforehand dropped an episode with James Dewar, who's part of the Bridge to Bitcoin team in the UK. And
Mhm.
he's on a mission with two or three other guys that are all had 30-year-long careers, financial or corporate. He was Prudential for 30 years, for example. And they're using their skills to bring together a prospectus kind of thing for corporates. Like Me Premier is perfect. Me Premier Bitcoin is perfect for kids or any adult really that's going through their journey of learning about Bitcoin. They're doing the same thing, but aimed at corporate desks and boardrooms. So
There's a lot going
there's
on. And
going
in
on.
fact, there's a fantastic company in Austria. It was the very first Bitcoin only exchange called Coinfinity. And they have put together a wonderful manifesto as Bitcoin as an investment strategy for corporates. And it's beautifully written. In fact, we should connect those guys, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no point all of us reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, with Les Femmes Orange, which is this platform that we founded to get more women into Bitcoin, the beauty of women is they're the world's best networkers. And it's my belief that women will play a very big role in spreading the idea of Bitcoin. And it's working. I mean, Les Femmes Orange is growing. Your wife has also started something up in the UK. It's growing. It's growing. And I just think that we spread the message a little bit more palatably, maybe, than the have fun staying poor or whatever message, and you see with the women, they come along, and once they've understood it, they bring their friends, they bring their husbands, they bring their families. And so we're putting on an event next week, inviting family offices and banks along to come and listen to Coinfinity, to come and listen to other banks who get it. And it's full. And this is working. You have to have the message on the table that the person on the other side of the table understands. And so you need to speak the language of the corporates. You need to speak the language of the energy companies. Then they'll understand it. Then they'll listen and open up for it. Yeah, it's working. It's cool, huh?
And just yesterday, Saylor dropped his 3-minute pitch to Microsoft. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet, but it's incredible. It's like wow. Like
Yeah.
he spent a lot of time. He must have spent a lot of time, just chopping away all of the crap just to get. So it's even with slides, it's just bang, 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 point after point after point after point, and it's just 3 minutes. Everyone's got 3 minutes. And
Mm.
I'm sure that's going to go pretty viral and do a lot of good work. But right, we need to back up. We haven't done like the who is Rachel and
Oh, that's
why
true.
the yeah,
That's true.
why the hell are
Sorry.
we
Yes.
here talking about Bitcoin all of a sudden? So people are going to want to know a little bit about your background and what brought you to Bitcoin and like the proverbial rabbit hole story, of course, because it will resonate with somebody listening out.
Okay. Yeah. So my rabbit hole story is I am eternally grateful to my son, Patrick, who in 2017 I was living in South Africa with the family, and he came along and said, Mum, you need to look at this Bitcoin business. And I, of course, was far too busy, had far too many important things to do. And so said to Patrick, okay, Paddy, you can buy a little bit for my husband and me, and buy a little bit for each of our four children for Christmas. And so 2017, it was only a few Satoshis. I'm not investing in something I don't understand. So that Christmas, we gave the children all some Satoshis and said to them, you have to keep it for a year, because that's actually the rule in Germany. Germany is wonderful. If you keep your Bitcoin for a year, there's no capital gains tax to be paid. So thereafter, whatever gains you make, if you sell it, which of course you're not going to, you don't have to pay capital gains. So we said to the children, keep it for a year. And we bought it at 17,000 and it crashed down to 3,000. So the children thought this was a ridiculous Christmas present. And I didn't really think about it too much, but Patrick kept on and on and on and on in our family chat. We had to open up a new chat called Bitcoin Banter that the family members could opt in because it was, too much. He'd be putting podcasts in there for 2 hours long, and I'd say, Patrick, who's got 2 hours to spend? Fast forward 2020, pandemic hits, changes everything, changes our lives completely. So we were living in South Africa. We didn't want to continue in South Africa while the pandemic was playing out. We didn't know what it was. We wanted to be closer to the children who were spread everywhere. Moved back. I had to leave my job behind. My husband lost his job. I had time, started reading, read. Finally understood it with Alex Gladstein, Check Your Financial Privilege, because we've lived all around the world. We've lived in Africa, we've lived in China, and I see what goes on in the rest of the world, and you think, why does nothing work in this country? Then you understand it's designed that way. And I knew instantly I had to work for Bitcoin. It was just this, I have to work for Bitcoin. It's the best thing that I can do for my children. To do whatever I can in my little uninspired way. And I come from the world of education. And so you're looking and thinking, well, what can I do in Bitcoin? And I actually applied for an internship with a Bitcoin mining company to do their social media. Well, I hate social media. I didn't have any social media. I wasn't on anything, but I thought, hey, I'll apply. I can do it. And I got it. They weren't paying. So, and I learned a lot, did 3 months there, went to as many conferences as I could, got to know as many people as I could. Ended up, I now work full-time Terra Hash Energy, which is a German company, where we do research into renewable energy and Bitcoin mining. And we offer two services, managed mining, if people want to invest in mining, but they want to do it in a sustainable way, because we're very focused on integrating Bitcoin mining into the energy infrastructure. We're not interested in this get rich quick, put up a massive mine where you're blowing the heat out into the environment. We want it to be a more decentralized solution going forward, because I actually see the mining as a bit of a risk at the moment, how consolidated it is. And it's really not in the ethos of Bitcoin. Whereas if we can get as many companies as we can mining Bitcoin to produce heat for their production, or the energy companies incorporating it, then we have a nice decentralized system. That's what we want going forward. So we also offer the companies the services if they're looking into lowering their energy bills, if they're looking into becoming energy independent. We can show them how Bitcoin mining can be a piece of the puzzle. It won't be that it's not the complete solution. You're still going to need your battery. You might need your heat pump if you need temperatures higher than the Bitcoin mining can produce, but it's a piece of the puzzle to make this nice solution. And we also then set up, a year ago, we set up the European Bitcoin Energy Association, knowing that if you want to do this properly, the more people we can take along with us, the better. And the European Union has great aspirations to become greener. And we all know what problems that entails, what that brings with it. The grid providers are scratching their head, how do I cope with all these fluctuating renewables when you need a grid to be kept constant at 50 hertz? So it's a group, it took a long time getting the board together. I wanted the right people sitting at the table. So we've got somebody who works on the European level on energy policy. We've got somebody who works at the European level on MiCA. We've got somebody who actually worked for the Green New Deal. And they're all Bitcoiners. They're fantastic people. Then we've got some mining companies involved as well. There's Prosperity Digital. They do a lot of Bitcoin mining in Europe. 21 Energy. They're fantastic. And it's more about showing, not telling, because there are actually some fantastic projects going on already in Europe. But miners don't like to talk about what they're doing for a number of reasons. Firstly, obviously, there's the normal competition, business competition, that you don't want your competitors to know what you're doing. But until there's safe regulations in place, we don't quite know which way that this is going. And there was talk at some point that the European Union was going to ban proof of work. So we realized how important it is to work together, that proof of work doesn't get banned. They need to understand what proof of work is and what it can. It will be the best thing that's ever hit the European Union if we really want to do this energy transition. And so it's all about educating, getting the right people. A lot of our work goes on behind closed doors. We talk to politicians, but more it's bringing everything together and spreading the news. That's what this is all about, and making sure that what you spread is factually correct. We don't need to be out here saying Bitcoin's going to save the world. We need to show what Bitcoin can do with facts and figures. So let's be realistic about this. And it's not easy. I mean, Bitcoin mining will be competing with AI. Whoever will pay the most will get the electricity. So it won't be the Bitcoin miners because they're on this global competition. But Bitcoin mining, or we like to call them flexible data centers, they have many, many benefits over other data centers. And it's a matter of highlighting these data centers. You want someone who can turn off instantly? That's us. There's nobody else who can do that. You want somebody who's location agnostic? That's us. You can put us in the desert. You can put us on an offshore wind platform. We don't need much. We need a tiny little bandwidth of internet. We don't need high security. It's not like we're looking after companies' data. The security of the network is happening wherever our miners are. So it's bringing attention to these energy grid providers, energy producers, as to why incorporating a data center, a flexible data center, is good for their business, is good for them going forward. This is what our focus is with IBEA.
Wow.
And we want to work together, which is why we had the UK Bitcoin policy over. We need to be working together. I've just been invited to join the initiative in Switzerland. Switzerland has just passed legislation in Bern, which is a canton, an area of Switzerland, that the politicians have said we need to learn about Bitcoin mining, and they've asked if we can come and sit at the table and explain what's going on. The best thing that we can do is actually invite those politicians to our research lab in Augsburg in Germany. We have 2-3 groups going through there a week probably at the moment. And if you can show somebody what it is, it's small, but we have cold water going into the miners, running through the miners, coming out, going into our big boiler where we are also. Let me just backtrack a little bit, because Terra Hash is actually part of a German company, a family-run business. And the whole reason we started was the Klager Group, which is our mother company. They produce cosmetics, they produce car parts, they produce spraying technology. And they were finding it incredibly difficult to be competitive because of the electricity prices. And so they thought, the founder, Christian Klager, who's in the 3rd generation now of this company, thought, well, maybe I just bung a couple of miners down in the cellar and take the heat off that, and I can run my cosmetics through the heat produced by the miners. So it all started off solving a problem for us. And then we thought, well, wait a minute, if this is solving a problem for the Klager Group, then there's going to be many other companies who have this problem. And thus Terra Hash Space was born to solve the problem for other companies. And this is how life works. You're trying to solve a problem. You solve that problem, and then you realize that's a product that you can sell to other companies. Then the other thing I do is, a couple of years ago, I was loving going around the Bitcoin conferences, but thinking, where are the women? we need women in Bitcoin. Firstly, Bitcoin is very useful for women. And maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned on this one, but my most important job that I've ever done is bring up four children. So I spent half of my life having and bringing up these four children, which I think is the most valuable work there is to be done. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter if mum is doing it. It doesn't matter if daddy's doing it. But somebody who loves those children should be doing it. And it shouldn't be institutions doing it. So that's me a little bit on my high horse. Um, and it, it's funny, Daniel, because I think we give so little credit to people who bring up children. And I was constantly asked, well, don't you work? You think I work harder than I've ever worked in my life. I work 24/7. I have no weekends. I have no holidays. And you ask me if I work. And it's interesting. I had a conversation at the weekend with a guy who I think is wonderful. And he was talking about this new girlfriend he's got. And he said, well, I love strong women. And this woman was someone who's very high up in her career. And I wish I'd said, I'm a bit too nervous, but I wish I'd said, so what's a weak woman? Is a weak woman one who is at home bringing up the children? Is that a weak woman? But this is what our society thinks, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it a bit sad that, I'm invited on all the stages of the world to talk because I'm the president of this and the president of that. I'm not invited on the stages to talk because I'm the mother of four children. But it's the most important job I've ever done. And it's the most important thing I've done for society. And I'm hoping with Bitcoin that the Satoshis will actually start flowing to the people who are really doing the work. And the ones who are really doing the valuable work for society, if we don't have the next generation, we can all pack up and go home. And if we have a next generation who's not resilient, which is what we're producing, we know what's happening. There's so much social anxiety. There's so much depression. We're not managing to produce resilient offspring. And I don't know why this is. Is it the system? Is it that they're churned out when they're 3 months old and they're packed into a kindergarten and then they go on? I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I would have thought the best thing that you can do for your children is have somebody bring them up, particularly in those formative 3 years at the beginning, who thoroughly loves them and wants the best for them. But then, we're seeing in Germany, the birth rate is crashing. Women don't want to have children. And it's not surprising. Firstly, you can't afford it because if you give up your job to go and have children, you will be my pension is going to be 300 euros. If I'm not going to get a pension at all, I know that. But with all this work I've done for these years, I would be getting 300 euros a month. Well, nobody can live on that. So you're not going to give up a job and go and have children because it's financially not viable. And secondly, it's just not held in esteem, in high esteem. And this is what we need to change. And maybe we
100%
will.
agree.
Maybe we will. Anyway,
100%
yeah,
agree.
that's me on my high horse. That's my pet topic. I give a shout out to every single man and woman out there who is bringing up children. You are doing the most valuable work for society that anyone can do.
And I hope, and I speak to them, the young Bitcoiners that are out there having, they're married and baby age, the level of hope that they have. Katie the Russian, for example, already got two kids, went from 0 to 2, like bang, bang, and ready for another one, and then another one. She doesn't want to stop. I had Walker on the other day, Walker and Carla, young family, just had their baby, and they're just absolutely thriving in these roles. And it's
Yeah.
Bitcoin that's giving them this hope and this safety
And
net,
the
and to
freedom to do
think
it. Yeah.
to the future, and to feel safe, and to
Yeah.
want to have more kids, multiple kids,
Mm.
which is our default natural state as a species. Like
We're
one,
so far removed from nature. This is what
it's beyond like
honestly, how
ridiculous.
can you think it's more important to go and sell widgets than and I remember having an argument with my husband. We were living in China, and it was when I had my first child, and the first child is very difficult, and it's 24/7, and he was
What
working.
year? What? What year was this? What
Oh, this is
decade?
going to show me up my age.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. 1996.
Okay, so this was just post one child policy, or
Yeah,
was
it
that?
was wild. Do you know what? And our company, so Marcus, my husband, was the CEO of the company. The management of the company had to ensure that the women weren't pregnant. They had to test the women to make sure they weren't pregnant if they'd already had a child. It was because they weren't allowed to have more than one child.
So it was still even
It
in the
was
mid
still it was
90s.
still a thing. It was
Oh
still
my.
a thing. Yeah. And then look
I'm
where
gonna have
that's
to
got
look
the
deeper into that.
Chinese. If you restrict, you need children. I mean, honestly, they're your future. So, and I was complaining to my husband at one point, because he was working 7 days a week trying to set up this factory. And
Mm.
I remember him saying to me, Rachel, what do you think is preferable? Looking to my, what's that? My files in the office or spending time playing with Harriet, our eldest daughter. And it's a privilege. It is a privilege, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity that we were financially able that I could stay at home and bring up the children. It's hard work. It's jolly hard work, but I know that there's an awful lot of women who would or dads who would like to be doing it and they simply can't afford it, and I think that's tragic. Tell me one other species that has its offspring and shunts it out to somebody else to bring up. I mean, it's just not natural. And it's not natural that there are so many women in the world going, I don't want to have children. It shows we're so far removed from nature
Mm.
because we're animals. We're here to procreate.
Hmm.
What if I don't leave anything behind? What's the
So,
point?
I,
And I was at my dad's 90th birthday last weekend. So my dad's 90. He's blind. He was blinded when he was 30. We had an incredible childhood. And now he's getting a bit Alzheimer-y. But we had a birthday party. He was 90 and the youngest grandchild was 18. And so we had this big party sitting around the table. They've got 10 grandchildren. They've got 3 children, 10 grandchildren. And we had a fantastic party because you had the youngest one. So there was this 18th party going on and this 90th party going on. And we were having an absolute ball. And I was looking around the table thinking, the only thing that matters in life is your family. And when you're born, it's your family. And when you go through bad times, it's your family. And when you die, it's your family. It's not your employees. It's not your colleagues. And I would consider that I have had a successful life if when I'm getting old, my children and my grandchildren want to spend time with me. And your children and your grandchildren want to spend time with you if you have spent time with your children and your grandchildren, because we all know it's about time and energy.
mhm.
So get off Twitter, get off LinkedIn, spend time with the most precious assets you've got. They're far more important than even the mission of Bitcoin. Spend time and energy on the people that you love, on your neighbors, on your friends, on your family. Far more important.
Yeah, for sure. And I just checked whilst we were talking that one child policy lasted up until 2015.
Yeah.
It's
It's
unbelievable,
unbelievable. And what it created was little monsters because
right?
so you have one child. So think about this. You have one child who has 2 parents and then 4 grandparents, and they're all focusing on this one child.
Mm,
There's nothing worse for a child than too much adult focus on them. I mean, any single child will tell you, the all the pressure is on their shoulders. And then how can you sustain the Chinese race when there's one child for 6 adults?
hmm.
And I mean, this is what's happening in Germany. We're not quite as bad as I mean, obviously now in China you can have more children, but they've learned it's a bad thing. It's not a wanted thing to have children. Nobody celebrates you here for having 3, 4 children. They think you're being antisocial. They don't realize that actually it's the best thing. As long as you can afford them yourself, we don't want the people having children. And this is, I'm sorry, and this will sound bad, but look around at who's having the children.
Hmm.
They are not the ones who will lead us to a successful future. It's the ones who are living off social welfare.
Hmm. Fiat
And
incentives, Rachel. It's a
it's
classic
the
example.
incentives.
Social welfare drives, look at the incentive structure. So,
Yeah,
especially, you saw this in the UK a couple of decades ago when all of the The social welfare money was made for single mums, in air quotes. So what did that do? We had this ridiculous spike in teenage pregnancies
Yes.
with young girls that would just looking for the milk money, looking for the rent money, looking for whatever money was being handed out. It incentivized them to go out and become a single mother. That was a lifestyle choice.
It was a
It's
lot.
unreal. Every time
It,
the government gets involved with anything,
every time they meddle, even in the health, and this is something I didn't understand. I could never understand the Americans not wanting a national health. Why would you not want a national health system? Now I understand it. We're fatter and healthier than we've ever been. Make me responsible for my own health. Make me have to pay the consequences if I smoke or drink or eat too much or don't do enough sport, and I will look after myself. And Daniel, it's everywhere we look and particularly in energy. So the governments subsidize renewables all over the place. And so what do we find? Completely inefficient systems. We have the problem in Germany at the moment that 20 years ago, the government subsidized biogas plants for agriculture. And the farmers were paid a fortune to put this down. So what happens? The biogas plants just get more expensive because the people producing them knows, oh, they get a whack of subsidy, so we'll put the price up by 30%. And then the farmers were paid 57 cents per kilowatt for the electricity that comes out of the biogas plant. So of course they're not efficient. And now this subsidy is running out. In next year, the subsidies, it was 20 years ago, is running out. The farmers are left with these biogas plants. Am I saying that right in English? Do you say biogas?
yeah.
Yeah. Biogas plants that, it costs them 12 cents to produce the electricity. When you look at what the rest of the world, they're producing electricity for 2 cents, 3 cents. They're used to having this 57 cents income. Well, they're not going to get that anymore because we can pack up and go home if our electricity it's already costing us 30 cents. So whenever the government intervenes and meddles, it just warps the playing field and it stops people really being innovative. And the only way to get pure innovation is through economic incentives. And you go much further with economic incentives. I mean, let's face it, we all want to live on a healthy planet. It's in none of our interests that if we have children, you're thinking about the next generation. Farmers, they are the quintessential people they are going to leave their farm to their children. So they want to leave a healthy farm to their children. They are incentivized. If you leave them alone, they're incentivized to work as sustainably as possible so that they pass a healthy farm to their children. And the thing that's gone wrong has been governments intervening, farms becoming more industrialized because your little farmer can no longer afford to run that farm because of all the red tape that they have to. They spend their time filling out forms rather than being out on the field and planting and growing and doing what they're supposed to do. They have to fulfill all these bureaucratic requirements. And then what happens is one by one, the farmers are having to give up because they can't afford it. And the industry is moving in and buying up the farms and buying up the farmland and running it like a factory. And that's what's producing this rubbish food that we have. And if you've got a company running a farm, they don't care about the next generation. They care about the quick profit.
Mm-hmm.
So they will bung all the rubbish on the fields to make sure that they can grow more next year. We need to be getting to the regenerative farming where you're thinking about not just your next generation, but the generation after that. And you're doing projects that you're not going to see the benefits of it. You're going to see the benefits in 20 years, but you're doing it for your children. This is what we need to get back to. This is Bitcoin. We're doing such a lot of work with regenerative agriculture in Germany and Bitcoin mining. And they don't understand Bitcoin as money. Farmers don't think like that. I mean, farmers' resources is land. If they've got a spare penny, they will buy land, which makes absolute sense. So you have to kind of explain to them how basically Bitcoin is land. It's a scarce resource. And they don't even need to buy Bitcoin, but how about Doesn't it make sense? Every farm has got a lot of space. It's very easy for them to put solar up on the roof. They don't need to be putting it all over their fields, which could be growing stuff. They've got big stalls, big sheds, big barns. If they've got animals, they need heat. And so when you go along with the solution that says, you know what, do you want to be not dependent on the grid and the prices of the grid? Oh, I'd love that. Do you
Mhm.
want a solution that will provide you with the heat that you need for your animals? Oh, I'd love that. Or for drying your feed, I'd love that. So they'll all be into Bitcoin mining.
Mhm. And you've solved the problem as well of their affluent waste, right? Because that can just go straight into the biogas digester,
It's
and
beautiful.
off we go. Because that we use that to power the Bitcoin miner, and we have this whole circular thing going on in the farms. And it's weird, this whole farming, because we just had this now in the UK, right? The new inheritance laws that are coming out, and basically a land grab from what I can tell, from government and whoever's pulling strings behind them, and the farmers, of course, they're up in arms. And but like there is this level of complete misunderstanding that they're not grasping. And if they fell into the trap of taking subsidies 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, this is where it all stems back to, because the
Yeah.
money is broken. And we've
Yeah.
got farmers out there that are being paid by the government to grow wildflowers in fields that could be used to
I know.
raise animals.
I
But they
know.
won't raise the animals because the government's paying them to grow wildflowers.
I
So,
think Clarkson, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Clarkson, if I'm really honest, but I have to say what he has done for agriculture. Now,
mm,
he was actually a bit of part of the problem because when I was arguing with someone about this inheritance tax, they said the problem in the UK is you have all these very wealthy people buying up farms to preserve their wealth. Yeah. And that's obviously not a way. We don't want the wealthy people. That's not the point. But the whole reason they're doing that is because the money's broken. So fix the money.
mm,
You've got these people who need to preserve their wealth, which I agree. Why should I pay inheritance tax on money that I've already taxed? I
mm,
have paid top tax my entire life. And anything we've got, it's because we've saved it. And so why should that be taxed again? Get your grubby mitts off my money. But what Clarkson has managed to do so beautifully is highlight the life of farmers and what they go through and how, you're so dependent on the weather. You can work your butt off, and if you've got too much rain, then you have no income that year. And what has happened with the government coming with their subsidies is they've enslaved farmers. If you accept money from the government, you become a slave. I don't even get child benefit for my children. I don't want to be a slave to the government. I hate paying my tax now. I mean, I do it. I don't want to be illegal, but it's not being spent on things that I want it to be spent on. And I just can't wait until we move to a system which is more efficient. I have no problem paying for any services that I use. I'm a highly social person. I will help out people in need willingly if I think that they've hit upon bad times, not due to any cause of their own. I'm very happy to help out. I've got refugees living with me in the house who I think are wonderful. They're wonderful. I don't want any refugee living in the house, but these that I know, you can see intentions are right. They've got a bright future ahead of them. They just got dealt a bum deal when they were born, and that can happen to any of our children. But if I look at my dad was in the Navy, and he was serving in Borneo, and he was blinded. He caught a virus in Borneo when he was 30. And so he had to be decommissioned from the Navy and came back to the UK. And he then went into St. Dunstan's, which is a charity for the blind. Obviously, after the First World War and the Second World War, there were a lot of blinded people, and we knew that you had to do something for your blinded veterans. But what they did was they trained him for another job. They trained him to become a physiotherapist. And so my dad then met my mum after he was blinded, had 3 children after he was blinded, set up a physio practice after he was blinded, and he was the best dad that you can that you can hope to have. Yes, he needed a bit of help from that charity to get himself going. He left school without a single O level. He was incredibly intelligent, but he grew up in Thief Lane in York. Yeah. So he just didn't have those opportunities. So he first went back to school, got the O levels he needed, became a physiotherapist, worked for a hospital to start with, started up a private practice, was extremely successful because he's great and because he works with his hands and people like it. Don't put me on a machine, rub me and talk to me because it's the talking that's the best medicine. And he could run his family without any subsidy from the government. And this is the way forward. Have somebody who's affected by these people want to set up something to help them. This whole idea of philanthropy, don't know how to pronounce it in English.
Philanthropy. Yep.
Philanthropy, thank you. Thank you. This philanthropy, that's my money.
Mm.
So I'm bothered where that money is going. When it's government money, nobody gives a toss where the money is going. Nobody follows up on, is it being used sensibly? Where's it ending up? You need to have skin in the game. So I don't want child benefit for my children. If I choose to have 4 children, it's because I can afford to bring them up. I don't want any help from the government. I need help from my family and friends and my network. We need society. We need to help each other out in times of, but you do not want a government that can take money from Peter to pay Paul without Peter's permission. We see this with the Ukraine war. Is that what you want your money to be going to? Or would you rather that it was, I don't even want it to go to the education system because I don't want public education. I want private education.
Well, Bitcoin, hopefully,
I hope
fixes
it
all
will.
this. And this is where, honestly, this is where, tying all of this into your work with Les Femmes Orange,
Yeah.
because this is where the education, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where you get to actually see the ladies that come and do your events that you run at the Hotel Princess in Plockingen in Germany. And I know I've bastardized that. How do you
It's
pronounce
fine,
it?
it's fine. Yeah.
uh, which is where, well, we met at that hotel at a Einensvansvig meetup, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
they were running for the weekend, and hit it off, obviously. And I was there with the family, and you and my wife got to chatting, and then you invited her along to that Les Femmes Orange event that you had in January.
Yeah, I
Uh,
wanted your daughter speaking at it because we need to be putting. It really upsets me at these Bitcoin conferences. We don't have the youth speaking on the stage. We don't have the women speaking on the stage. And then I have had to hear so many times in my life now, we don't want a quota. I tell you, Daniel, there are fantastic women out there doing stuff in Bitcoin. They are not quota women.
a
But
quota. What does that
you
mean?
know, so
Sorry.
that you've got to fulfill your quota, that you need 50% women, you're 50% men. That's not what I'm asking for.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because if you want more women to come into Bitcoin, they need to be able to see that it's something that's relevant to them.
Mm.
And and I'm not dissing Michael Saylor in any shape or form. I think he's doing wonderful in what he's doing. I cannot bear listening to him. He's not relevant to me. I haven't got billions to spend and he's not relevant to me. But if I hear a woman up there who's talking about how Bitcoin has changed her life and she can now spend the time with the children that she couldn't spend before and that she's not worried about her retirement anymore. I listen to that and think, yeah, that's my life. And we haven't got enough young people in Bitcoin. So we need the Sophias and the Laurens and the Caitlyns of this world up on the stage talking about what Bitcoin is for youth. But the problem that we have is it's men organizing these conferences and they put on the stage what interests them. When I was at my very first conference in Switzerland, I was the only woman speaker at it. And we were in the speaker room afterwards, and the man sitting next to me said, "Oh, I can't bear it when women talk about Bitcoin." I mean, I was absolutely flabbergasted. And there in it, you have it. That's the problem. And men and women are different.
Mm.
And it's wonderful. Men are fantastic. Satoshi Nakamoto was a man. If without men, we wouldn't have Bitcoin. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. I would ask that people recognize how fantastic women are. And obviously, I'm generalizing, and you're going to have more masculine traits and more feminine traits in everybody. But on the whole, women are interested in people and men are interested in things. And so a man will get hard on by listening to somebody on the stage talking about a hardware wallet. And a woman will get fire in her belly when she hears Anita Posh talking about what she's doing for the disadvantaged in Africa. And you need to light the fire in people's bellies. And women are, we will only succeed as women. We have to be social. We have to network. It all goes back to evolution. If I did not have a strong network and I'm looking after this little baby, which makes me quite defenseless, I'll be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. So it's in my genes that I make sure that I've got a network around me who can help and protect me. And that's not being strong. That's being sensible. I think the whole problem started, we got feminism completely wrong. Yes, women were definitely disadvantaged. But what we've tried to achieve with feminism is that we become the same as men. And, oh, the only good thing to do is go out to work. What, to go and sit 8 hours in an office doing shit? No, thank you. What we should have been fighting for is the work that we are doing is incredibly valuable. And why am I at a financial disadvantage for doing such a valuable contribution to society? I do believe that women should not be financially dependent on men in any shape or form. Other way around as well. I think for the men, it's a much nicer situation not to have the pressure of providing for, being the sole breadwinner and providing for everything. But what if we could learn that men are fantastic and women are fantastic and they're different and that's okay. And we need masculine traits and we need feminine traits to have a successful society. Because what we've got at the moment, if you ask people what are masculine traits, it will come out leadership, strong, all these things will come out. And if you look at who earns the most money in society, it's those people who demonstrate those traits. So if you want to get ahead in society at the moment and earn a lot of money, you basically need to put your elbows out and walk on corpses. Yeah. And then you will earn a lot of money. I want a society where you can equally earn that money. If you're looking after the children, you're looking after the old people, you're making a home. We've forgotten how valuable it is to have a home. If you've got somewhere to come back to at the end of the day, the children have got somewhere to come back to, everybody's got somewhere to come back to where there's peace and calm and not stressed. But if you've got all of those members out at work all day, every day, and then you're rushing around once you finish work, going to the shop, you're rushing, you're rushing, you're rushing. Home is not a place of peace anymore. We're losing out as a society because we didn't recognize what women were doing. And it can be the men doing it. I'm not saying it has to be, I'm not saying it has to be the woman who makes the home and brings up the children, but whoever is doing this work has to be recognized for the value that they're contributing to society.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And when you think about just like our natural roles, like the male is to to provide and protect, and the mother would be to nurture and protect. So all we're trying to do is protect our kids, and we are coming at this thing like you so rightly say. Everybody comes to Bitcoin for a different reason.
Yeah.
It's not
And
just
this is
one cure fits. There are thousands, multiple different reasons that people get here and what path they take. That's why I like doing like the rabbit hole story, because you never know who that's going to resonate with. And
yeah.
yeah, going around the conferences with taking my family with me was a real aha moment for each and every single one of us. Six of us. Even though I'd been down the rabbit hole for so much longer than everybody else, I would hit one talk and be, shit, that just clicked into place. But the other five people might have
Did
just been
nothing
bored. Like,
declare.
yeah, like what were they saying? But then we go and watch something else, and then something clicks into place for Claire and Caitlyn, and then something else. And Lauren's like, oh, wait. So
Yeah.
you never know at what moment that's going
No.
to happen.
And
And
we are doing it as I actually see it as a bit of I mean, it's not a bit, Bitcoin will get through whatever, yeah. But imagine at the moment, and I'm making up these numbers because I don't know what they are, but I could imagine that 92% of Bitcoin is in male hands and only a very small amount is in female hands. Will that be a healthy society going forward? Is that what we want? Is that really, really what we want? So, when I find it sad that we have to do such a lot of battle to be heard and that we get dismissed because we talk about emotions and that's boring and that's not interesting and they don't want to have that on the stage. They don't realize how valuable it is to have emotions talked about on the stage. But you know what? That's why I did Les Femmes Orange. I will make my own stage. And Les Femmes Orange, we have plenty of men coming, and they love it. They love it. They go, oh my gosh, that was the nicest. Nobody's competing. I don't need to show you that I'm more intelligent than you. I don't need to show you that I know more than you. We're on this journey together. We're all trying to learn. Some things you will know, some things I will know. I will help you. It's not about who's the most important, who's on the most podcasts, who's got the most followers on Twitter. I mean, it's ridiculous, this path that we're going down. It's ridiculous. It's all about what are you doing? What are you actually doing to bring Bitcoin into society? And women are the ones who, on the whole, make the domestic choices at home. They're the ones who make the purchases. We want them on board. They're the ones who deal with. That's why I got into Bitcoin, because I was the one who did the financials of our family. My husband didn't get Bitcoin. I got Bitcoin. He didn't. And this is what we're finding with Les Femmes Orange. We have one big meetup a month, I mean, I built it on the same way as Zwanzig, which is a fantastic organization. And I love it. And I love going to it, but it's not attracting the women in the number that it should be. So it's nothing. It's not a company. It's not a foundation. It's nothing. It's an idea. And it's growing because then a woman comes along to a meetup and goes, oh, well, I can do that meetup in my hometown. And then just start it up with 3 people coming along, 4 people coming along. It will snowball. We've got over 500 people in the Telegram group in Germany. Things are springing up like what's happening in the UK, in Italy. It's all the same kind of idea. You need to provide this area, but there's no money involved in it. I'm not doing it. I don't want to make money. I don't want to be famous. I just want women. I love women and I want to, listen, please spend the time to understand what Bitcoin is because it's the best thing. It's the best use of your time. And I know you think you're busy, and women are busy. We're looking after the children, we're going off to work, we're looking after the parents, we're cleaning the house, even though we're trying to get more equality, all the statistics show that women are still they do not have time to watch a 2-hour podcast.
mhm.
But it's precisely these people who need Bitcoin because they're working their asses off and they're doing such valuable things for society. And they're the ones who, in old age, there's much higher level of poverty amongst old women than amongst old men, because it's the society is paying for all the masculine traits and they're not paying for the feminine traits
On a fiat standard.
on a fiat standard.
That's why Bitcoin is going to change it. And I know, yeah, I get your point saying, whatever the number is, it held in male hands. That's an interesting thought. Hopefully, many Bitcoiners listening to this will have inheritance plans set up and fail safes set up that if the worst should happen, then it does get distributed to spouses,
I think the
daughters.
trouble is that, and this is what we see with Les Femmes Orange, it's really with the best intentions. So we find that if you have a man in the workshop as well, he will try and take over for the woman. Now, he means it with the best intention. That's all of his evolutionary, let me look after you coming in. But we need it that the women can do it by
Well, like
themselves.
take the cold card and no, press this button, then you
Yes,
press this button, and then it's out of her hand. Right. Okay, I
yes, it's
understand
out
you.
of it. And,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
honestly, you go, how many people have got Bitcoin? And it's a Bitcoin event, so the majority of people put their hand up. Men and women, yeah. And then you say, how many people hold the keys? And the women's hands go down. Well, then you haven't got Bitcoin. You haven't got Bitcoin if your husband is the only one who knows how to work that key. And if you really, really love and cherish your wife and you need to make sure that she goes to workshops, that she can do it all by herself, and that half of it is in her control.
Hmm.
That's the only fair way to do it. And this is what we plead with the women. It's not rocket science. It seems, I know that you get the fear of God put into you that you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do that. To do a hard, you don't have to run a node. You don't have to run a lightning node. It's nice if you can, but you don't have to. I would say the most important thing is you study Bitcoin. Then, yes, sure, buy a bit of Bitcoin, leave it on the exchange. Fine, that's better than not having Bitcoin at all. And there will be people who are better off leaving it on an exchange. If you're a 70-year-old, leave it on an exchange. Probably trying to work out a hardware wallet, the risk involved of you getting something wrong is higher than the exchange going under. But when we do workshops and we show them how to do it, show me how to do it. Don't tell me to look at a YouTube video. Sit next to me. Don't take it out of my hands. Help me do it,
Hmm.
but don't do it for me. And then they're off.
Can
Women love
you at these
lightning.
events? Can you do parallel parking as well? Because
We don't need to be able to parallel park. That's what we've got the men for.
just just one of those other things that no, no,
But
no,
it's
just get out, let me do it. Like
Yeah. But this is we're just different. And I know I'll get slammed and there'll be plenty of women who go and the majority of women who get into Bitcoin early do tend to be the ones maybe who are do have more masculine traits in them. Because that's what you were interested in tech and finance, which on the whole tends to be more masculine traits, yeah. So I'm not talking, maybe I need to change my vocabulary and talk about masculine and the feminine traits, or we maybe need to have a different word for it. But honestly, let's just talk common sense. If I
mm,
listen to a gaggle of women, it sounds completely different to listening to a gaggle of men.
mhm.
Wherever I am in the world. And I've lived in many, many different countries around the world, and you see the same thing. It's the women who are clustered around the children, and the men are off smoking their pipes and talking philosophy around the fire. It was,
Flipping burgers around a barbecue. Like
yeah,
it's go to any family event. It's the same thing. It's always the same
what
thing.
makes me really
So
laugh,
so we
barbecues.
if we know that, we can leverage that.
Yes, and let's just accept it and not fight. I think what you do and what you I love masculine trait. I love a man to protect me. I love a man to pay the bill in the restaurant, even if it's my money, I don't care. Pay that bill in the restaurant. It makes me feel loved and cherished and warm and squidgy. I love a man to open a door for me. I know I can open my own door. I'm not stupid, but I love it if a man will do it for me. I love it if you want to make my heart beat faster, move to the side of the street when we're walking down the street. It just makes me feel completely loved. Put yourself between the cars and me. Obviously, you're not going to, why are we fighting this? We are biologically different. Why are we fighting it?
Hmm.
Let's accept it. And I think the whole point was that women were looked down upon, were not it depends on how you measure success. I mean, going back to your barbecue story, I have to laugh every time I go to a barbecue when the men reckon that they're doing the cooking. And the women are in the kitchen making the salads, doing the potato, doing everything else. And they've marinated the meat, probably. But men stand there and they reckon they're doing the cooking. Bless him. Bless him.
I got these sausages off Bob the butcher down the road. Yeah, yeah, literally just went in, bought the sausages, put it on the grill, and yeah, that
Yeah.
counts as yeah. I know
But,
exactly what you're saying. It's
but
funny.
Daniel, every great invention comes from men because men are the ones who can focus on a problem and find a solution. Women's brains are all over the place because we're trying to do 10 things at once. But a man can focus. And it's because of that beautiful ability to focus, which annoys women because you ignore us. But it's because of your wonderful ability to focus that we've got this technology called Bitcoin. So together we're better. Together we're stronger.
100%. And I think what you're doing is so important. The work with Les Femmes Orange, you've inspired, other movements now to do the same as you, that have come across and seen the power that it's had. And there's even little the side events at the conferences have gone down so well. The one in Madeira was really well received.
Yeah.
The one in Prague as well.
Yeah.
That's just awesome. And it's funny because the one at Prague, who did I see at breakfast that morning? Isabella, who's doing incredible work with her YouTube videos and whatever else. And I said, "Oh, you're going to the women's event thing today?" And she's like, "What? I didn't know it. Where is it? What's going on?" So always the same with the conferences. Everybody's so busy, and it's impossible to plan everything and catch absolutely everything that's going on. So she went along, and then she came back, and as she walked back into the conference, we just bumped into each other. Oh, how was the event? And she just like, I was crying.
Yeah.
I was crying.
Yeah.
Especially, I think even my kids were up on stage at one
Yeah, they
point. I
were.
think
Your family,
answering
your whole
questions.
family. And your daughter stood up and told Claire how wonderful Claire was. And there was another family of four who got up on the stage because I want these women to be heard,
Mm,
not the powerful women in business. In my opinion, yeah, we need them, but we need the mums, and they need to be up on the stage because they're heroes. But I tell you why they didn't know about that event. We had no support whatsoever from the organizers of Prague. I got not I had to pay for everything of that myself. I had to find my own sponsors for it. And what they think is, oh well, and they didn't post a single photo of that event on their, and they say we don't need this women's stuff. They don't get it. And if you look at their speakers again, they didn't even put Anita Posh on the main stage. Nobody is doing more work for Bitcoin than Anita Posh. They didn't give her a space on the main stage. And it's just you're fighting this battle. You're fighting this battle. They don't want to be seen as being woke. Yeah. And you try to say, listen, it's got nothing to do with being woke. It's about recognizing reality that men and different that women are 50% of the population and they're very important. And if you want to attract them, if we really want this Bitcoin thing to go forward, what do we need to do to get the women? And then it's not enough, because then you see, I've done another event in Switzerland, and then they just bung all the women on the side stage and they don't put them on the main stage. You need your side event because it feels good if you're all together and you get all emotional. That's good. But it still doesn't mean don't put women on the main stage. And I find that I'm always organizing everybody else's event because they know I organize a fantastic event. I put on all the energy events that are going on. Do they invite me to speak on the stage? No. If I'm invited to speak on the stage, it's the bloody moderator. I'm the moderator, and yet I'm doing more in the Bitcoin space than anyone I know. But do I get invited? Listen, I'm busy doing stuff. And these Bitcoin conferences, it's because you're preaching to the converted. You've got a bunch of Bitcoiners sitting down in the audience who knows everything that's going to be said on stage, that we need to be getting out of Bitcoin conferences. We need to be appealing to the man on the Clapham omnibus. We need to be appealing to not Bitcoiners. Don't preach to the converted. It makes you feel good. I like going to Bitcoin events because you fill your tank. I love when we do Les Femmes Orange, we don't, it's men are welcome to come to Les Femmes Orange, but there are some parts of it where we will have a women's circle and the men will have a men's circle. And they all love it. We need to spend time with our own sex. There's nothing wrong we should never have got rid of gentlemen's clubs. Unless the purpose of the gentlemen's club is to hold women down, that's not good. But I think that, men like being just with men. You feel comfortable if you're just with your own sex, and women like being just with women. Some don't need it, that's fine. Some feel happy all the time, but there are women who like being with just women. There are men who like being just with men. And then you have the opportunity to do things together. I mean, it's how it used to be in Victorian times after the meal. The men would go off and have their cigar, and the women, fine. We're different. I want to talk about society and children, and you want to talk about state of the economy. Fine.
In politics. Yep.
And politics.
Exactly.
That went well, didn't it?
Yeah.
Uh,
So okay, so we've done Terra Hash, we've done Les Femmes Orange, we've done
IBEA.
motherhood, fatherhood, parenting.
Yes, yes. And so going back to the European Bitcoin Energy Association,
Hmm.
I think it's really important, and this is where women are good as well. Susie works for the UK Bitcoin policy. She's brilliant. There's a Swiss association that's working, and I know one of the women on that. And we network because we help each other
Hmm.
because we can see that, a boat that's rising up takes everyone with it.
Hmm.
And we all need to be working together, it doesn't really matter. If you've got Bitcoin and I've got Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter who gets the job because anything that's good for Bitcoin, as long as you've got your little stash, you'll be fine. So really, all of us should just be doing whatever we can. And I don't mind what you're doing. We need all sorts. We need all sorts. The one who just has one conversation with their friend is really valuable.
Hmm.
The one who has a conversation with a colleague is really valuable. And everybody who's doing their little bit, and it's not about you, it's about the cause that we're trying to do. Wonderful.
And for the proof of work ban, I completely forgot to shout out Ludmila and Botar at the Open Dialogue Foundation
Mm.
that were doing incredible work as well at policy making level. Like
Yeah.
these ladies, they're in Brussels, they get in front of people. I'm like, wow, okay, I couldn't do that, but I'm glad you're out there doing
Yeah,
it,
you're
and
glad
I
that
can
there's someone
support you
that's
in any
doing
way I
it.
can.
Yeah.
It's
But you know what will have the most success? And I admire the work that they're doing because it's completely necessary. It's completely necessary because there are people in those situations. What will turn this around very quickly is when the European Union doesn't, the politicians at the European Union don't particularly care about activists and dissidents around the world. It doesn't mean anything to them. But if you touch on a problem that does mean something to them, yeah, they want cheap electricity bills. That affects them. And so
Mhm.
we will get that legislation through quicker once they realize. And there's wonderful work going on at the moment. So you'll know about the MiCA regulations, So every cryptocurrency has to show, or every crypto exchange selling cryptocurrencies has to show the carbon footprint of the cryptocurrencies that it's selling. And how have they decided to do that? They've decided to do that on a per transaction basis. So if I do a transaction in Bitcoin, what is the CO2? Well, we all know that's a load of, am I allowed to? Rubbish. We know that.
Yes.
But it's there in the legislation, so you've got to do it. And they're pulling all these numbers out of thin air because you can't find these numbers. And what's important is you can't compare Bitcoin, a transaction on Bitcoin, with a transaction on Cardano or Solana or whatever. Shouldn't we be taking Lightning into account? Shouldn't we be taking Liquid into account? And so this is the kind of education that needs to be doing behind closed doors. And if they can understand that, wait a minute, if you want to be comparing apples with apples. And the problem that you've got in politics is that where does the money come from? So who is doing the lobby work? Well, Bitcoin can't do any lobby work because there's no company Bitcoin. And this is why I would ask people please to support the European Bitcoin Energy Association, because we are the ones with a voice for Bitcoin at the table. But of course, we have no money because we're not selling a shitcoin
Mhm.
and scamming people. So even if you hate politics, if you want to continue living in Europe and you want Europe to be the kind of place you want to live in, or you want to continue living in the UK, support the UK Bitcoin policy, support the EBA. We're doing the work you don't want to do. I hate all of that stuff. I can't do it, but I know the people who I need to have around the table. That we don't all want to emigrate to El Salvador. I love living in Europe. I've lived all around the world, and no, nothing beats the UK, Europe, their history, their beautiful buildings, the culture. So I want to do everything I can to get as many people on board as possible that Europe remains the kind of place that we want to live. And we need to educate the politicians, we need to educate the regulators. They're also just people. They're all just people, and it's ignorance.
Mhm.
If you take a day in the life of a politician and you look at what they're supposed to be making decisions on across this wide range of, they can't possibly know. And so they're going to listen to the one who puts the piece of paper under their nose and maybe puts something in their pocket. I didn't say that. They will listen to the one who puts the piece of paper in front of them and does the work for them. So let's make sure that's Bitcoin doing the work. Let's make sure that it's Bitcoin who's putting that piece of paper saying, this is what Bitcoin mining can do. And I love it because I see on the bank account, the EBA bank account, there's somebody, I have no idea who it is, who gives us €2.21 every month. And I love that. I love that. That makes me feel happy. That's a little bit of support. They're probably a real pleb, but every little bit helps.
And where can people? How can people donate if they want to sign up and
Well,
show
you can
support?
see that on our website. You see, what we're trying to do with EBA is our members, we're trying to get to be the big companies because we need to really open the door to the European Union. So we've got Brains, we've got Coinfinity, we've got Terra Hash, we've got Prosperity Digital, we've got Börse Stuttgart. That's the largest exchange in Germany, digital asset exchange in Germany. And so we're working on building very much as members. We want to have the Siemens of this world as our members. We want to have banks as our members because that's what will carry weight at the European level. Oh, you've got this bank talking for you. And what we actually believe is the ones who will be doing the lobbying, the real lobbying, will be the energy providers and
Mm,
the grid operators, because they've got a lot of weight already at the European Union. And so our job, more than educating the regulators, is to educate the energy companies. Why do you need Bitcoin? And this is what we're doing. I mean, there's a pilot project starting up in Austria on grid stabilization. We're in talks to do one in Germany. There's talks to do it in Switzerland. It's happening. Terahash, Terahash has just started an amazing project, 1 megawatt up in Finland, 1 megawatt using hydropower, and we're helping to heat 12,000 homes in Finland. And this, you can put this anywhere where you've got abundant renewable energy. So the more projects that we've actually got going, the more we can take the politicians and the regulators to these plants and show them what's happening. This is more valuable than sitting and talking at a table and showing them books.
mhm.
So we're at EBA, we're making sure that we reach out to all the mining companies who will talk to us, and can we put on your website? This is going to be our next task, to put up on the website all the wonderful projects that are going on. And then people can look at that and go, oh, well, it's already happening. I mean, it's
Mm.
already happening. Bitcoin's happening. Bitcoin is happening already.
So, if there's a sleeper pleb listening to this now and
Mm.
thinks to him or herself, I've been, the guy side-eyed in the boardroom for the last 5 years, and I've
Reach
given
out to
up
me.
talking about Bitcoin because it's actually become a career risk for them. I
Yes,
feel this is switching now,
it is.
and it's high time. And especially, would they be able to go like show your website, invite people across?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
does it all? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we love inviting. I mean, if you follow our social media, I mean, I spend my life showing people around the Energy Lab, and it never ceases to inspire me because I can remember the first time I walked into the Energy Lab, and I thought, "Oh, is that it? Well, that's just
Mm,
computers. Well, it's not noisy." And so I was exactly the same. You hear Bitcoin mining and it sounds dirty. And when you look at the farms, with the air cooled, it is loud and yuck. But we don't do that. We're using the hydro cooled miners because they're the most efficient for extracting heat. And we work together with there's a wonderful company in China, Heatcore, that we work very closely with. It's a small company. They're really into sustainability, really into it. They're not just ticking the boxes, they're not ESGing it. They really care about the planet. And they produce these racks with everything built in. And it's interesting because we had Siemens come around last week, and they opened the door to this rack. And it's the Siemens infrastructure already built in. The switches all came from Siemens. So they were, my goodness, we're already doing this without their knowledge. And so they see that it's literally a server rack. Literally, and the computers look exactly the same as if it was a Netflix or a Google, and people just go, oh, well, that's easy. And then you see at the back, you plug in your cold water supply here, and then hot water comes out there. Oh, well, that's easy. And then you say, oh, well, we could try this. Well, we could do a little pilot project of this. We've just set up, we've just set up in Germany a car wash. So it's got space, it's got, I think, 5 outside places, and it's got solar panels above, which are see-through so that it stays light. They've now installed 2 Bitcoin miners, which in winter, some of the air goes out and defrosts their solar panels so that they're more efficient in winter. And then they've got underfloor heating so that it de-ices these car park spaces. And then when they've got surplus, it heats up the water. Because
Hmm.
if you wash your car in hot water, it's much more effective. You get the insects off better.
Mm.
Um, so we've just set this up, and it's a Kirsche, which is a very well-known German brand for, the women might know this better. Well, that sounds very sexist, so I shouldn't have done that. But it's all these house cleaning stuff, steamers, whatever. Very
The,
big
the
company.
the the power washers the men would
Power
know for
washers, the
doing the
power washers.
driveways. Yeah.
Well, if this proof of concept works out to be beneficial, well, how many car washes are there of that
Hmm.
brand across Germany who can, like this, introduce
And
it?
how much, actually, another point, how much business is lost on those cold mornings where the whole thing just freezes up and it can't be used? Problem
Exactly.
solved.
Exactly. And this is where we need to be collecting the data, having the pilot projects running, and that those are your pioneering Bitcoiners, just like we were at Terra Hash. Christian Kleger, our founder, puts his money where his mouth is.
Hmm.
And he's put shed loads of money into this because it wasn't cheap setting up that energy lab. That was before we earned a single penny. So they put their money where their mouth is. And they set up these pilot projects. They run it, they try it. Some things don't work. So, for example, our our plant that we've got in Augsburg, we have solar on the roof. That's where we do our cosmetics and our plastic technology. It's actually not economically viable to do the Bitcoin mining because we don't have enough surplus energy to run the miners long enough. But we have another plant over in East Germany where we make car parts. And there was a big field next to that. Well, we've just plastered the whole lot with 1.6 megawatts of solar. We only need half of that to produce the car parts, but we knew that we could be running a container of miners as well. So we were economically incentivized to build out far more renewables there, knowing that we could run the miners. We don't actually need the heat in that plant. But so you can't definitively say that Bitcoin mining is the solution. You have to look on a case by case business. How much surplus energy do you have? How much do you need for your own production? Is it worth incorporating a battery as well? So that so like our factories don't run at the weekend. So we've got all of our solar not doing anything at the weekend. But on the whole, if you've got the newer kind of miners, it's not worth running them 2 days a week. You need to run them 7 days a week. But it is worth buying the old miners that you can buy for a song and have them running. They're not as efficient. They're not earning you as many Satoshis. But before you curtail that energy and don't get anything for it, have it running through some old miners. So you need to look at all of this on a case by case, which is the services that we offer. Tell us what your situation is. We've got engineers on this who know what they're looking for. And sometimes we have to say, to be honest, it's not worth it for you. And we will always say that because we want successful projects. So if we think it's not worth it that you do Bitcoin mining, we will be the first to say it. But you will have some people who say, I want to do Bitcoin mining, whatever, because I want to have some non-KYC Bitcoin. I want to be energy independent. So even if I'm paying a little bit more for my energy because I'm producing it myself, I'd rather have that than be relying on the grid the prices could go up 20, 30, 40% next year. So there's lots of different economic incentives, and you have to look at each of them on a case by case. One thing I would probably say at the moment, if you haven't got more than 100 kilowatt, don't don't look into it. We have a lot of
Mm.
people who've got, a little bit on their roof of their individual homes. Solutions are being made for that. There's more and more companies who are producing plug and play solutions for heating your homes. Very interesting products coming out of Europe. 21 Energy, Riot, Chinese companies, and you do just plug a miner down in the bottom, and it's integrated into your central heating system. So those solutions are coming. but it's not worth doing an individualized solutions for a household yet.
Hmm. And there's a company in France called Hestia who are doing literally plug and play, like the electric radiators that would just be put on a wall that are mining Bitcoin silently within the radiator, and they're getting signed up with. Last time I checked and caught up with them, all new builds now in France have to have electric energy. They can't have another source of
Yeah,
heat, so it
same
can't
as
be log
Switzerland.
burners, it can't be gas, it can't be oil. So like the Trojan horse there could be
It's
absolutely huge.
amazing. But we
you
actually
know?
did a pilot project. We did a pilot project with the city of Basel,
Mm.
where we were heating one of they
Where the Bank of International Settlements sit.
where they sit, yes.
Yeah.
So they had 6 apartments or 7 apartments, and so we were doing some testing on running. I think we only used one miner. One miner could do all that. In the end, it turned out that a heat pump would be more efficient
Hmm.
in
But
that
you did the
particular.
test.
But we did the test, they were
Yeah.
open to it. And there will be other circumstances, maybe if they have more solar on the roof, where the Bitcoin mining will be, so these places are opening up to Bitcoin mining. It's happening. It's happening. And that's what we see as our job. Get out there. If you can connect me to any of those French, because you've got good connections to France. I don't have such good, I know a lot in the German speaking world. I
Hmm.
don't know so much what's going on in the French speaking world. So if you can connect me to anybody there, particularly for
Absolutely.
beer, that would be very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just made a note of it right now.
Wonderful.
Okay. Right. So, it, do you have to run? It's 11
I
o'clock.
do have to run. I
You
do
do,
have
right?
to run.
Okay.
I've got
I was going
my
to say, somebody might be very interested in learning more about you and your work. Are Terra Hash, they might be inspired to come and work. Did Terra Hash, are they hiring? Is there any jobs
I
open?
get job applications every single day.
Amazing.
What amazing. What we want to do is we want to be a real proper Bitcoin company, which means we're decentralized. And so we want to stay small and we want to work together with other companies and we do work together. So if we don't have in-house engineers, we work with out-house engineers. So we have, people that we know get it. And so when we've got a project, we'll ask them to do the engineering part of it or electricians. So we don't want to become your world's next 300 employee company. We want to know who we can work together with because we think this is the future. No Bitcoiner wants to work for a massive company. We all want to be free and live our lives how we want to live our lives. So we're not hiring ourselves at the moment. We will need a few more because just the back end of it all is
Mhm.
becoming impossible to
We need
manage.
we need a terahash in every domain. We need somebody to follow the blueprint that you guys have put down. And
Well, funny you should say this. There are talks afoot.
aha,
We need Terra Hash Switzerland, Terra Hash and it's literally just to, don't reinvent the wheel. We don't all need to have a laboratory. People can come over and have a look at what we're doing. We're very
yeah,
open to this. Work
absolutely. And it
together
could
is better.
be a new way to think about franchising because the old way is just so broken and
Yeah,
not nice,
yeah.
no good. Right, Rachel, I don't want to keep you, but I've got to ask you the last question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
I would give it to my neighbor. Not quite neighbor, a couple of houses down the street, because when I talk to her, she really has no money. And she says, I can't afford to take the risk. In fact, what I've done is I've bought Bitcoin for her and I've said, you can buy it off me till 2030 at this price because it's these people who really need Bitcoin. I can understand why they think they can't risk buying Bitcoin. So I'd give it to someone who's got no money because they're the ones who really need to understand, even if they buy 100 euros of every month putting aside 10. Those are the people who need it. They work their socks off. They need it.
100%. Wonderful answer. Thank you so much for coming on and look forward to seeing you again in the new year, wherever it is in the world that we cross paths.
I'm sure we will. Okay. Thanks for the invite, Daniel. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.